Your position, I'm reading some of the stuff that you've said. An African may have lived, worked, and even been classed as a citizen in America for centuries, yet he is not American, okay?
Yes.
He is, as he likely prefers to be labeled, an African in America. The same rule applies to others who are not of the founding stock of our people or do not share the common unconscious that premates throughout our greater civilization and the European diaspora. The American identity was something uniquely forged in the struggle that our ancestors waged to survive in the new continent, not simply by birth, by one granted this title, but by the degree to which he works and fulfills the potential of his birth. So what do you think, like, if you were to break down what you believe in, do you want America to be a place where it's all white nationalists and nobody else that's not a white nationalist will be here? Would that be an ideal situation for you?
Not necessarily, and I believe that might be a bit of a leading question. But when you're talking about that statement in particular, and it is from an older version of the manifesto, it has been updated and clarified. But when you look at different groups, different groups in America, blacks have been very much culturally, economically, socially, and even legally distinct from what we call white Americans, or I simply refer to as Americans, for the entire history of this country. And from the 1600s to the 2020s, there are groups in this country that are very distinct. And when I say American, I'm not referring to purely as a citizen, but I'm referring to a member of the American nation, which I believe is a cultural, as an ethnic group, just like Iranian, just like a member of any country from Europe. But I believe we should treat the native, true-born population of America in the same way that other countries are purely allowed to recognize that somebody from this country has a unique cultural background. And this isn't to say that blacks are not here, that they do not have a unique culture on this continent. It is simply to say that they are so distinct, both racially, economically, socially. Segregation still exists de facto today. Many communities are largely one or another population. I believe these differences are so distinct that we ought to consider them as different nations, perhaps within the same government.
Okay, so what does that really mean? Going back to my question.
Sure.
I'm from Iran. Okay. My mother's Armenian. My dad's Assyrian. I came here in November 20, 1990. June 20th of 1999, I become a U.S. citizen. I joined the Army with a green card, okay? What do you consider me? Do you see me as an American or do you see me as an Iranian?
I would think you are a citizen. You are legally and civically a part of the United States, and I would classify you as a good citizen. You are a businessman. You have brought a lot of value to the country. However, I would say that you are distinct from an American. And I am not somebody who believes that everybody who is not American is by default worse than. Mm-hmm. I don't put the world into that kind of hierarchy, but I believe there is a distinction there. And when you're talking about, what I would want to do, I think immigration should be restricted. I think all of the illegals should be sent home. I think anybody who lied about their naturalization status in order to get it unlawfully should be sent home. Like Tucker Carlson, you spoke with him recently. Mm-hmm. He mentioned how everybody with a dual passport should have to choose. Mm-hmm. Things like that are a great start, and I think you would really be able to help demographically secure the country. But, are we asking, should the United States have anybody within its borders in any civic capacity, which is not a national, which is not a true cultural, assimilated person? I think there is some room for that, and I think there's some room for that in a lot of reasonable governments. But what we're talking about today, or what we're talking about in the country today, mm-hmm. is the fact that should these globalist policies be allowed to completely transform the cultural and demographic landscape of the country? And I believe that would make it something entirely different.
So my sons, their mother is white. Their mother's white. She was born in Texas, Houston, Texas. Their dad is Middle Eastern. What are my kids? Are they American?
I would say they are half and half.
So if they're not born here to you, they're not American. If they're not, so what do I have to be fully American in your eyes?
You personally?
Anybody.
So an American, I believe, is a member of the European race, any of the nations of the European race. And they not only, you aren't American simply by being a member of the European race. You have to have lived in America and assimilated to the American culture, the American heritage, which is harder to do nowadays because our culture has been so diluted. Things have been made much less sincere, I believe, when we look back at our history. So somebody not only a member of the European people, but also specifically a member of the who has assimilated to the American nation, just like anybody might assimilate.
Got it. So have you done Ancestry on your family?
Yes.
And what showed up? What came up for you?
I have ancestors from both my mother's and my father's side that go back to the 1700s before the Revolution.
And where do they come from?
Scotland, Britain, and I have some French and German ancestry as well.
Was it 100% Scotland, Britain, and was there anything from the Middle East at all?
No, not that I know of. No.
0% from anything else.
Entirely European.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.